Edwin K. Morris, and you are about to embark on the next Pioneer Knowledge Services Because You Need to Know, a digital resource for you to listen to folks share their experience and knowledge around the field of knowledge management and nonprofit work. It should be noted that our guest was working for Philips at the time of this recording.
Good afternoon. My naam is Sebastiaan Borgers. I live in Soest in Nederland in the provincie Utrecht. So my name is Sebastiaan Borgers. I live in Soest in the Netherlands. It's in the province of Utrecht in the middle of the country. The most interesting thing near me in my hometown is that we have sand dunes here in the middle of the country. So we're not living close to the sea, but it's really in the middle of the country. And it's actually a heritage from the last ice age that we had in Europe. In the weekends, it's packed with people over there because it's so interesting. During the week, it's totally empty. So I tend to be there a lot because it really makes me calm and it's really nice to see. It's also the place where I go to when I want to reflect on the books that I read, for example. And I read a lot. I try to keep up with different kind of themes, but most of the time, the books that I read are about personal development. So the last book was Atomic Habits from James Clear. It's really about if you want to achieve your goal. Of course, it's great to have a goal, but changing your habits is much more valuable if you want to reach that goal. So doing small changes in your daily habits will actually make you reach these goals. And yeah, that's really interesting. And it's really a nice method to really be successful. I'm really inspired by people who are actually successful. Because if you see, for example, a sportsman or a musician, that doesn't come overnight. These people have trained or practiced so many years to really become the best in their profession. And that really inspires me. My intent to show up in the world is to be seen as a positive person with 2 feet on the ground. I'm really the guy who wants to get things done. So I'm really a result-oriented person, whether it's in sports or in work. I always needed to have clear result of what I'm doing, and that's also my intent to how I want to show up for the world. Interesting, if I talk about this, it's not only in my personal life, but also indeed in my working life, of course. I create value in business by really asking a lot of questions, make a plan, and then translate strategy into action. The job that I'm currently in at Philips, it's really about translating a high-level strategy into action. That's where I'm at my best. And so that's also what I like. And that's also how other people see me. That doesn't happen overnight. So the best advice I ever got was let the time do its work. It's an interesting one because we often tend to think, we need to move on. But sometimes you need time to let people understand the things. Actually, my brother gave it to me once. He's a bit older, and he was already working in a company, and that was the advice he gave me. And actually, I gave it a lot to younger people who are in my environment and trying really to say, I want to move up the ladder. And I say, let time do his work. It will come. That's a bit about me.
Does the Netherlands just do knowledge management easier than anywhere else on the planet?
Why are you asking that?
I don't know. I'm asking, is that a truism? It seems to me that a lot of KM is in your part of the world and not in my part of the world.
I don't know if it's better. I think it's maybe it's more visible maybe, and maybe we tend to talk about it a bit more. What I see if I'm working with my American colleagues, they're always very keen on knowledge management or practicing knowledge management. So that's I feel sometimes it's the opposite is true. But in the Netherlands, we have high-tech companies, of course, service companies around here. To be able to successful in their field of play, capturing their knowledge and making their knowledge available to the people that need it, is of course very important. That's actually what they sell, right? It's the knowledge they sell. So that's maybe a reason why it's more visible here in the Netherlands.
Your current position in organization's an international seat. Do you see any particular regions that are easier to pick this up? You're not spending a lot of time trying to explain what the benefits are. Is there a culture that's just better at doing KM?
No, I have many Indian colleagues. and they are very keen on knowledge management, and they're also very disciplined in doing it. And they're very disciplined in making sure that after projects they capture the knowledge, they organize events, they do it in a very disciplined way. That's an area that I see is, but it's also sometimes a bit traditional. But we can talk about that later. It's a bit of a traditional way of doing knowledge management. Other parts, Eastern Europe is also our hub in Poland. They are also very good in sure that the knowledge they produce or they feel that they need to capture, they capture it. So that's a bit my high-level take on this, on your question. Yeah.
Do you think in those two cultures, do you think it's more the reason, maybe their adaptation, their practice, their doing knowledge management, so to speak, is something to do with the way they're educated? Do you think that's the difference? Do you think it's just family orientation or beliefs, or what's your take?
I think it's a little bit of both, and it has to do with culture. Yes, of course, Poland was on the other side of the Iron Curtain, and in this culture, everything was administrated, right? Everything was put on paper and kept in archives. So maybe it has to do with that. I can imagine that India is a bit of the same, of course. The UK, the England colonies. So that might have to do with it. Yes, I don't know. But it's just, if I work with these people, it is often quite easy to convince them it's important because they already feel it's important, right? So that's a bit, and that's not always the case, I can tell you.
Well, you bring up a good point, and that is the value or the importance of.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned that the Indians, in your example, they're very hands-on and very detailed, and these are my words, very much curate their knowledge quite well, which produce, document, share, all those things. What do you think in the world of knowledge, what would you say is your top 3 pitfalls that organizations usually fall into that example why they should be interested in managing their knowledge?
That's a good question because I see that a lot. So what I always try to discuss with people is really indeed, hey, is this something that is nice to know, or do we really need to know this? So always make a sort of a distinction between your nice to knows and your need to know, so need to haves. Because just capturing everything, archiving everything, will make life not easier, it will make life more difficult. And so let's be very precise on what needs to be captured on paper or in another media format or whatever. So that is something that's the first pitfall. The second pitfall I often see is that technology is becoming much more important than the culture around knowledge sharing, knowledge capturing, etc. So the technology has the full focus and really trying to create something that is a sort of an internal Google, or we tend to forget what is really needed to actually make it valuable, because the fool with a tool is still a fool. So that's what I say. And you need to be very conscious on, hey, what do we actually want to achieve with this knowledge, with this technology? Yeah. The third one, that's where we heavily focused on expert management in Philips, is really about create a governance around your knowledge management capability that works for people. Yeah. And we don't prescribe a governance, but make sure that it's clear to everybody who the expert is in a specific field or a specific capability. So you have a sort of a check line to make sure that people can trust the information that is out there because it's acknowledged by someone that is the expert in that field. So capturing everything, that's one. Making the tool much more important than it really is, and forgetting a sort of a governance around your knowledge. I think these are the 3 top pitfalls from my perspective.
I would say that those are probably pretty well defined, and I think most of the listeners would be able to say, oh yeah, I can see that. What if an organization came to you and say, we want to institute a knowledge management organizational culture? What's our first step?
For me, the first step would be asking the question why and what the business impact should be of that knowledge management organization or whatever. So that's would be my first step. And then
this goes back to your passion, which is taking strategic and making it actionable.
Yes, exactly. Right? And asking a lot of questions. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen that a lot, and I've worked, of course, Philips is a large company, and I've worked with many organizations that said, yeah, we want to do knowledge management. And then asking one simple question about why. And that's great, but why? And then, sometimes people have a great answer and say, hey, this is really something we need to support with. And sometimes it's difficult to come up with an answer. And I think that's the first step.
Because if they can't answer it, then they're not clear on what it is.
Exactly. They're not clear on why they want it and also on what it is. So everything can be okay or everything can be wrong. Mm-hmm. And knowledge management is not something you just do. You need to put time and effort and money in it. So you better first have clear what you want, why you want it, and then move on to the next steps on, making it more specific.
So where did you fall into KM? When was that?
That was about 4 or 5 years ago, formally. So I have a background in educational sciences. So I have always been in the field of learning and development, business transformation, knowledge management, of course, but more from a learning and development perspective. A few years back, when Philips was really becoming a solutions company, knowledge management became much more important because the knowledge needs in the company were changing because of that transition or that transformation. And we're very clear that, if we want to become that solutions company, we need to capture other types of knowledge than we currently do. And I was in solutions transformation program at that time, and then I stepped over to the knowledge management part. So that was really nice. Actually, my first reaction was knowledge management. That's something for a 63-year-old person. I'm really inspired by everything that's going on in the field. I'm glad I made that step.
What is the future of KM that you see from your seat in the world? Where's it going?
That's a question I get a lot. I think what you see and what we at least do in Philips as well is the capturing of the knowledge or the storage of the knowledge and labeling it or developing taxonomies, etc. That is there already. There are many organizations that just offer that, or it's already part of your IT landscape in your organizations. The future of knowledge management will be more on connecting people to people and building bridges between groups of people that you might not get connected if you don't put effort to it. So I think that's the future. So really, valuable community of practice where the right questions get the right answers, create answers together. I think that is really, for me, what I see is the future of KM, because the technology and the content, it's there and people expect it to be there in their workflows in the coming years automatically. And of course, you need to organize it in the back, but not so heavily as we used to do a few years back.
It's almost like information management has kind of shrunk because now things are so automated or part of a system you're using. It's not necessarily a heavy lift anymore.
Yeah.
Taxonomy, ontologies, all that kind of stuff. You got to wonder, is it just you're not going to find somebody sitting down and creating a taxonomy, because it should be fairly automated at some point.
Yeah. We tested some technology and it worked.
Yeah.
But then we come back to my first point. The technology alone will not work. So you need people, and that's the link to people again, to sort of govern and to make sure that the topics that come up via that technology are actually curated in a way that people can rely on the true or still the latest document, etc. Of course, you need to do some work on it, but not as heavily as we used to do.
As things change and digitization occurs, whether they want it to or not, in some organizations, going back to your future of more social networks, socialization, social construct, I'm going to tie that in and think that this is why you're visiting that as a future goal, that KM strengthens the people connection better, is that on your third item that is a problem for areas of development in an organization was around expertise location, finding what your own people know in order to help you solve a problem.
Yeah.
I totally think that if organizations got really cool on this, they can make a lot of return on investment pretty easily because it will save time, save money, all those things, and make things faster to action. What is the proper way to do that? And I'm saying that because I know a lot of organizations hire by a CV or a...
your portfolio.
Right. So a lot of hiring is done by CV or portfolio or your LinkedIn profile. It doesn't naturally fit what the organization really wants to know about what you know. That's all kind of window dressing to some degree. It's not really the essence of what a person is. And I think what you're saying is if you want to build a good expertise finder model, you got to find what people are passionate about.
Indeed. Yeah.
How do you do that?
There are different ways that I see it. Finding the expert, two main elements in it. One is defining what type of expertise you actually need. So more from a content perspective. And secondly, and that's what we do at Philips, is more or less creating a sort of a personal, or sort of a description of what being an expert means. Because if you have a lot of expertise, that doesn't mean that you're able to bring that forward or to put that in a nice summary or talk about that in a community session or whatever. That's first. So first of all, you need to understand, hey, who are actually, and AI can be helpful in that, because you have tools that say, hey, these people talk a lot about this and this topic. It might be an expert in your field. What we actually did in the early days in Philips, we just asked in communities, who do you think is the expert in this field? Many times the same names popped up, and not always the names that were like the validated experts, so to say, in that field. So that's interesting. So you see different people popping up around the same expertise. And then what we are trying to do at Philips is to educate these people around, hey, how can you play your role as an expert? You have your day-to-day job, and being an expert should fit in that. So first of all, you need to make clear, have a discussion with your manager, discuss, hey, what does this mean? How many hours per week should I spend on this? And is that separate time, or is it, can I include it in my daily work? Or, open up the discussion. That's one. And then, of course, what we have is a sort of a community of practice for experts. They can become a member of that, and we have training, we have tips, tricks, because everybody goes through the same learning curve, more or less, faster or not so fast, and that's fine. But why, it's sort of a knowledge management around expert management. Why reinvent the wheel yourself all the time if peers around you who went through the same journey? So that's how we try to tackle it. So from a content perspective, what are our strategic topics and who are linked to these topics? Formally and informally, that's one. And then secondly, hey, what does it mean to be an expert? And how do you make sure you play a role in your field?
You bring up a good point in that the degree or the certification does not make you an expert.
No.
Is my view. You can have the degree, you can have certification, but if you don't have the capability, and on the other side of that coin, you don't have a degree, you don't have a certificate, but by golly, you're a flippin' expert because that's your passion thing. You've been doing this or whatever. There's a more of an intentful practice around that. So that makes it tough to evaluate. And I liked your idea of doing it by peers or by other folks. How would you rate or who would you go ask? Because really now you're down to actionable time. I am not going to go talk to that guy because he's just blah, blah, blah. But if I want to do something quick, I'll call Shelly over here and she'll, not a problem. Because it's all about the time delay and value of action. So I'm with you.
Edwin, it's not my idea. Company in the Netherlands who does that. And I learned it from them. And that if people see who the experts are, they know. And let's make use of it.
Yeah, I think I know who you speak of. That's Bart with Guru Scan.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, everybody knows Bart. He's all over the place.
And he is very knowledgeable on this topic.
And he's been a guest a few times. Actually, they did a corporate donation. One of their first videos that they had were like a bunch of birds in a tree. When I was teaching class, I would use that video because it really displayed the whole concept perfectly of people communicating and all that sort of thing. And can I have the video? Can you donate me the video so I can use it? And he's like, sure.
Nice. He's nice man.
Well, to get back to the topic at hand, so we've talked about expertise location, knowledge sharing, and really developing a work culture of knowledge users. But what would you define knowledge management as?
Of course, there are many very difficult definitions of knowledge management. What we try to do with the team is to really make it very concrete, making sure that people have access to the right knowledge at the right time in the right format. It's one phrase, but there's a lot behind it, of course, if you want to do that well. But that's a bit how we try to make it accessible to people, because if you come into the discussion about, is it knowledge management or information management, or is this learning and development, or does it really matter? It is about, it's an enabling capability in organizations. For me, it's always very clear that it is about making sure that people find what they're looking for at the moment they need it. And that's the very actionable variant of knowledge management. Of course, you have also something like the knowledge that is really important for us as a company. For example, all the knowledge we have around our medical equipment. That's not what we touch currently. It's different. So it's really about making sure that people can do their job in the best possible way by using knowledge and expertise at hand.
So in your organization, there's a chunk of doctrinal or institutional knowledge that you're like, that's not your department. Yeah. But what you're working with is the culture, more the people piece, right? Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
And connecting those folks on communicating and sharing, developing relationships.
Yes.
What is the hardest thing about getting people? And I ask this because it's usually the downfall of many activities, getting everybody together and saying, yay, let's go forward.
Oh, that's utopia, I think.
You have a learning background, right? In education?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
That's the use case, right? So if you've got a classroom of 32 students, do they all learn the same way? Do they all have the same motivation? No. Exactly. So you have to really look at an organization the same way as students.
Yes, that's the answer to the question. There is no one silver bullet. What you need to do is really look into a specific context and see, what works here. So you have, of course, your portfolio of knowledge management instruments. So how to build a community of practice, how to identify your expert, etc. Create lessons learned. So that's the methodologies. However, for every department, there's a different use case. They have different objectives or different overarching goals or whatever, different type of people. And within that, and that's it. And you can also not say, hey, in this organization, we have these type of people. That also differs. So it's consulting work, right? You need to really understand, when are these people motivated to do something? What worked here before? Can we link it to something that works here? And then link to my introduction, I talked about atomic habits. You cannot change a culture overnight. But what you can do is start to implement little habits, small habits, little differences than what you did before, and then try to move people towards not what I like, but what leadership would like to achieve with it. And then searching for a sort of a coalition of the willing, and try to use that as a sort of a vehicle to get it rolling.
Can it be advisable for an organization to make KM or that culture piece mandatory? From what I remember you said early on, your organization kind of plants the seeds and let people come to it. You're not mandatorily flipping the switch and saying, everybody will do this, now go.
We tried that. So we are now a center of expertise. Before we were a program. And what we did, we had a program-like approach, deploying knowledge management in the organization, keeping track of the progress of all these different... That didn't work. People were like, are you going to tell me what I need to do? That's not going to work. We flipped it around, and now you see the traction, and making it really show the world that it's working for some groups and what the benefits are, and then try to make it appealing to others and say, hey, if you want to do this, here we have a training, here we have material for you, and if you need support, we are here to support you. So that's how we do it now, and actually that works much better.
So you're giving people the choice to participate. It's not mandatory. You tried that. You got a lot of ugly looks out of that. And now your marketing schema, if you want to call it marketing, because it kind of is, you're marketing to your demographic you have to serve. It's just like that. You can't get all cats walking in the same direction. So you just kind of go onesie twosies and let the value show itself, and people start to talk and see, oh, really? That's kind of the slow conversion you're at. Yeah. You're converting the culture.
Exactly. And And then people also realize that if they want to set up a community of practice, if they can learn how to do that, because it has been done, they will sign up for that course and become a community of practice manager. People also a bit lazy sometimes. And if you show them, how they can speed up their process or what they can steal from us, steal with pride. That, of course, it. We always say steal with pride. Why not do it in building your KM capability? Yeah.
Has your organization dabbled in the international standard for KM?
So that's because I had a lot of trouble because it was in it was part of the quality framework. Mm-hmm. Because we thought it would be very helpful for knowledge management in the beginning to be part of that framework, because then we could force the organization to adhere to it. However, then what happened was, there were some quality issues at Philips, and then all processes were investigated. And there I was trying to convince people that we should not apply this to Philips, but that we couldn't just change that. So, no, we are not practicing that anymore.
What you just referred to was the quality standards, right?
Yeah.
ISO 9000
exactly.
Or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any advice for the young at heart out there just trying to make things better?
That's really how I want to be seen as a person, and also how I try to educate the people around me, is that start with small steps. Don't make it too big at the start, because it can be quite complex. So first make up your mind around, hey, how should this be helpful for us? To what extent will this support us in becoming more successful? And then make up your mind, hey, and what are we then going to do? And start with people, and make sure that you have people around you that will become your partners and to really make this happen. I think for every transformation, whether it's knowledge management, because I see implementing knowledge management is for me a large transformation. In transformations, you have phases. You have to go through these phases. That's the advice. Don't try to go too fast and make it too big, because then you will fail.
So go ahead and plug your phrase that you had on time.
Yeah, so let the time do its work. And that's from my brother, so it's really, it helped me a lot, actually.
You need to name your brother so we can cite him. What's your brother's name?
His name is Michiel Borgers. Michael, but then in Dutch. I will send it to you. Michiel Borgers, from Den Haag. The Hague.
Now, there is a similar framework that is a quote from a family friend of ours who's passed now, but his was, sometimes you just need to let that rough end drag, meaning it'll kind of take care of it, kind of exactly the same philosophy of what you said.
Yeah, I think that's the same, yes.
Well, thanks for being here today. Thanks for sharing your time and space.
Thank you. It was nice talking to you at last.
You have just finished our latest Because You Need to Know, a public service of Pioneer Knowledge Services. Please join us on LinkedIn and find us at pioneer-ks.org.
Thank you for listening to Because You Need to Know, the reference podcast in knowledge management. My name is Soni Toneme. As an art administrator, Because You Need to Know has been my go-to podcast and has helped me hone my management skills. Please consider sponsoring the podcast with your business.